Why Liam Gallagher's return is more important than you know. Let's find out. The living legend, angel voice, loudmouth, Harker Monkey, man of the people is back with a brand new track called Everything's Electric, featuring Dave Grohl on drums, Greg Kurstin's incredible production, and the song is exactly how you'd expect from Liam in 2022. Massive drums, massive guitars, anthemic, stadium-ready chorus. What more could you want? And I think the production on this tune as well is really good. I think Greg's kind of paid homage to Liam's signature sound from like the Britpop era and with Oasis, but at the same time giving this song like a new sheen that really kind of hits harder than his previous stuff. It's really kind of snappy sounding, which I like, and it sounds really modern and fresh to me. But to really understand why Liam's resurgence is so goddamn important, I think we have to go back in time a little bit. When Oasis split in 2009, I just remember watching it on the news on the TV and being absolutely devastated. I was planning on going to see them later that year as well, and when I heard that the band were going to break up for good, part of me was like, this is just a fight, this is not going to be serious, they're going to be back the next week. And then when it was kind of final, I kind of couldn't believe it. And then when I heard that Liam was going to form a new band with the rest of the band called BDI, not the best name for a band, if you ask me, part of me was getting really excited again just to see what that new sound would be like. And instead of BDI doing what I would have expected them to do, which is go for a different sound, completely different style, let's just wipe the slate clean, they did the complete opposite. They just went straight down the middle and just created an album that just sounded like Oasis light, almost like an Oasis tribute act. And inevitably they were just going to draw comparisons between themselves and Oasis, and they were never going to live up to that. They didn't have Noel's incredible songwriting, they didn't have the kind of legacy and the cult following that Oasis had. It was just losing an uphill battle. And I think BDI was a bit of a failed project for Liam and the band, to be honest, and I think even they would own up to that and say, like, you know, they couldn't fill the kind of venues that they were hoping to fill. They couldn't sell as many tickets as they were hoping to sell because their songs just weren't good enough. And when the band called it a day in 2014, I don't think anyone was really that shocked or surprised. Likewise, I don't think anyone's going to miss BDI really that much. They just didn't have the songs, they just didn't have the traction and the popularity I think that Liam was hoping for. I remember in the news around that time, there's all this stuff as well about Liam getting divorced, him having an illegitimate child with a reporter from New York. The less said about that, the better. And yeah, it just seemed to all be going a bit downhill for him. But for me, at that time, if Liam had just hung his boots up and was like, I'm going to call this a day, going to go sit on a beach in my retirement in the south of France, I think everyone would have been happy. I think the legacy alone he's left with Oasis is a career and a half's worth of work, and I think that anyone would be incredibly proud of that and would go down as a living legend if that was all they did. But it didn't end there. And so he did at that time remove himself from the spotlight. I don't remember seeing much in the media or in the press about him. It was all fairly quiet until that video surfaced online. You know the video I'm talking about. The one where I think he'd had like 20 Guinnesses or something in this Irish pub, and as you do if you're a musician and you've had a few pints, you whip out the guitar and play a few tunes. He took his guitar out and just started playing Bold, one of the songs that he'd written himself for his first debut album, which we'll talk about in a second. And that video went viral. Like, here's me thinking the world's had enough of Liam Gallagher. Clearly they hadn't. They want more. So that video then goes viral and everyone's talking about what he's working on. Is he working on solo stuff? Is this just Liam messing about? Are these just old songs that he wrote years ago during Oasis days? Everyone was really excited to see what would happen next. And then he releases Wall of Glass, and what an incredible debut solo single to come back with. An absolutely seismic belter of a tune. And that song just has so much attitude. And the thing that like shocks me about that tune more than anything is his voice. I just don't know how he's managed to do that. His voice has been in steady decline since the What's the Story Morning Glory era. It's just been getting more nasally and more hoarse and off pitch throughout that period. And for whatever reason, I don't know what he's done, but his voice on that first single just sounds impeccable. It sounds like relaxed, well rested, clean, just the right amount of distortion. It's just pretty perfect to me. But then following the buzz of that kind of first single drop was probably the event, I think, that really marked Liam's comeback and put him back on the map. And that was the One Love concert in Manchester that was set up by Ariana Grande to commemorate those that lost their lives in that Manchester bombing. And Ariana put this concert on, which I think was an incredible gesture, invited some of the biggest pop stars from around the world to play, which was awesome. And I was watching this thinking, this is great, we've got some of the biggest stars around the world playing this event, but we need something a bit more Manchester, something a bit closer to home. I wonder what they've got lined up. And then I'm watching this at home, nighttime falls, the stage clears, and they start putting on live instruments like actual drum kits and guitars, and I'm thinking, hey yo, what's going on here? This looks different. And you know, there's a load of smoke that fills the stage, and then you see a lone man, bright orange parka, walking up with that swag to the microphone. When Liam starts singing Live Forever, I think that was just the moment that put him back on the map. And it's such an incredible gesture to come and sing that song, considering what that event was all about. And not only did he kind of capture the hearts of his existing fans, legacy fans that have followed him since the Oasis and BDI days, but for me, he captured the hearts of a whole younger generation who perhaps didn't really know much about him, and there he was. The Messiah has returned. And in terms of the song itself, the actual performance, I almost cried. It was one of the most incredible, beautiful gestures I've ever seen from a musician. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it on YouTube, it's amazing. And from that moment on, his comeback was in full swing. 2017 saw the release of Liam's first solo debut album, As You Were, which for me was an incredible solo debut album with awesome songs, great production, great songwriting, and just a really, really solid piece of work. And that was followed up by 2019's Why Me, Why Not, my favourite Liam Gallagher record. Yeah, I know he's only done two, but it's my favourite one. And I think that's because we start to see Liam's songwriting really develop and come into its own on here. There are tunes like Once, One of Us, that are a bit softer, a bit sweeter, those kind of rock ballads I don't think we've really seen from Liam before. And those are the best tunes on the album, and they're just really simple rock ballads that have really meaningful lyrics and just show off how Liam's improved so much as a songwriter. And it kind of got me thinking, why are Liam's solo albums so good? And why was BDI just trash, and why did it fail to live up to expectations? And I think it's to do with who Liam surrounded himself with. I think by the very nature of creating a solo album, you need to work with different producers, different songwriters, just different people with different perspectives. They probably had more energy, but also those different perspectives just contributed to a different kind of outcome, and a positive one at that. And there's nothing particularly new or interesting about his solo albums, they're just really well done. And I think that people just wanted great rock songs, but with that modern sheen. I think they've just focused on what's important, like the song is important. And I think the benefit of Liam working with these professional songwriters, professional producers, was that they just focused on what was important, which was the actual song. Like, if you haven't got a good song, if you haven't got a good basis to work from, then it doesn't matter how many bells and whistles you put on it, it's still going to be rubbish. And that brings me on nicely to the music scene of today. Liam is a middle-aged man that's had his time in Oasis, has had this incredible fall from grace, and this equally incredible resurgence. He's got his own solo stuff, it's great in its own right, strong songs, but he seems to have almost fitted straight back into that headline slot for these festivals across the world. And he's now selling out Nebworth, which is mental. He's 2 albums in, about to release his 3rd album, and he's selling out Nebworth. It's just crazy. Now, you could make the argument that maybe there should be a little bit more competition for that kind of headline slot there. It almost feels like Liam's come back and he's just slotted straight back into that top headline slot. And not to take anything away from Liam, because I do think his solo stuff is awesome, and I think everyone's always going to want to see Liam live. But what does that say about the state of rock music today? The fact that there seems to be such a little competition for that headline slot. There just haven't been any bands in the past 3 to 5 years that have come up through the ranks and really competed on that level. But I think that speaks volumes about the state of indie rock music today, and the lack of great bands with just great songs, big personalities that you kind of want to support and go on a journey with. And it leaves a bit of a bittersweet taste in your mouth, because when Liam eventually stops, one day he will stop making music, and other kind of big artists throughout the 90s and 2000s, they will eventually stop making music. And you just think, if you're an indie rock fan, what is there to look forward to? Someone turn me on to some bands that are going to be headlining those festivals, because I don't know any. There's no one else that looks like they're going to take over the mantle, which is a little bit sad to see for this genre. Why that is probably a video for another day, and I think there's probably tons of videos on YouTube where people have tried to kind of quantify why that is. But if I've learned anything from kind of reflecting on Liam's story, it's that whilst we've got him, and whilst Liam's making music, we should just appreciate him, enjoy it, support him, because one day he will stop, and that'll be a sad day for music. And that brings me to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please do consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Button's just down there for more content like this. But in the meantime, Liam Gallagher, live forever.